For about 6 months or so now, and for much longer than that, I have been thinking about the term "no good deed goes unpunished." So I'm going to make a podcast about it. It's probably going to be quite a longer episode than this, but it's a cynical term, and we hear it a lot. No good deed goes unpunished. It's very cynical, and it means that we do something for someone and we can get punished for it. I've heard examples such as, you help somebody move and then they get mad if you break something. You can give somebody some money and you might short them $10 that they asked for. You don't mean to. They're just angry at you. You've done a good deed, but you haven't done it enough. And there's one thing I do know about it, because I refuse to get cynical. I will still do good deeds. I just now I use a little wisdom if I can, because I'd rather err on the side of being kind. But I've learned to give to people who probably won't do that to me. And it's a tried and true thing. You kind of have to test it out. So if you've been facing the no good deed goes unpunished, and I'd love to hear in the comments what that means to you, because when I do the podcast, I'd really like to hear some input from other people. I'd love to have that, because as a therapist, I can't use what my clients say about it, but they often do, because and I often tell them today's expectations becomes tomorrow's obligations. And that's just awful. Like if you do something for somebody, like if you get them, one year you get them a fruit of the month club, and then they want to know why you didn't get it for the next year. Where's my fruit? Well, that was one gift for 1 year. That's the kind of thing that I mean. Expectations become obligations. And if you've ever felt that no good deed goes unpunished, there's some things you can do to think about how that happens to you. If it happens to you a lot, it happens to codependents a lot. This will be under the codependency clause right here. It happens a whole lot to a codependent. They give until they give out. So if you're giving until you give out, heed the warning. Why are you giving? You have to test your motive before we go blaming it in a cynical way to somebody else. We say, oh, they shouldn't have asked me to do that. Well, they did, and you said yes. So you're responsible for saying yes. You're also responsible if you want to change your mind and say no, and they're responsible to accept your no for an answer. So that's where there's really no blame here. It's just an understanding of what no good deed goes unpunished means. It's funny, because there was one time I was in a situation where the group of people volunteered for a huge thing. I'm not going to even say where it was or what it was, because I don't want to point any fingers and have anybody get mad at me. But it was something that a lot of people had to come together to do, and it was like a full-time job for years. And it was a volunteer position. It was in Tennessee, the volunteer state. And a very nice young lady that I knew in that group, she had gotten pregnant, and she was tired and she was late, and she was full-time job, and then she was going to school too. And the person who was directing this volunteer group yelled at her for being late for like 3 times in a row. And she just broke down crying. And I walked out with her. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Look, if somebody mows your lawn for free," that's not what we were doing, but I made an analogy for him. I said, if somebody mows your lawn for free, you don't tell them they missed a spot. Like this young woman has been helping you for years and years and years and years, longer than I had. And you don't yell at her if she misses a few times. And he didn't apologize. He was just angry. And I didn't go back because I was exhausted from it. He'd yelled at me a couple of times. He yelled at everybody. It wasn't any singling out, didn't take it personally. And so that's the number two thing. I'm going to tell you not to take it personally. It's very difficult not to do that, because when you do a good deed and people aren't pleased with it, you take it personally. Like, wait a minute, I was magnanimous to give you this. I did this for you. And you're mad at me because I did it, or you're mad at me because I said I would, and then I backed out. And that has happened to me. But you might back out because of your own moral compass. So again, check your own moral compass. What are your motives for saying yes? Is it a knee-jerk reaction that you're just so used to saying yes as a codependent? And then you realize, oh my gosh, I can't do that because of this, and this. You're allowed to come back and say no to someone who's put you in a position to say yes when you didn't really want to say yes. And if you've told them you didn't really want to say yes, and if you've explained to them, I don't know, if they keep pushing and pushing and pushing at you, that's likely to be the person that you shouldn't do a good deed for. If somebody says, oh, come on, come on, come on, come on, that's likely to be the person that's going to punish you for a good deed. The other person that won't is just somebody said, can you help me with this? You say, yeah, and they do. And you might have missed a spot mowing their lawn, but they won't yell at you. They go, hey, I'm just glad to have great help. So check and balance your motives, their motives, and are they trying to push you? Of course, we all know about narcissists, sociopaths, they'll push you to the max. But you have to realize that you have a responsibility to yourself, not to other people necessarily, but to yourself, because you can get in trouble. I know sometimes I'll give a lot of extra time to people, and I will, they'll be angry with me. And I only have so much time. We only have so much time. The richest man on earth cannot buy any more time. So here's another way to know what to do about it. I always give you topics and then tell you what to do about it. If you constantly find yourself in a position of doing good deeds and being punished in some way, shape, or form, that can be just disapproval, anger, expectation, obligation, whatever that is, there's a question you ask yourself too. First, you ask yourself, what was my motive? How did this happen? We've established that. The second question is, and I mean, really, really think about this. If I would ask someone to do that, how would I feel? And add to that, if somebody was going to help me, would I ask that of them? Would I ask somebody to do what I just offered to do for somebody else? And if your answer is no, then don't do it. Like if somebody said, will you pay my rent for a year? If you have the means, by all means, and they're the kind of person you can give to, fine. But if they say it's year after year after year after year, well, then no. So understand that if somebody asks you to do something that you would never ask them to do, think about that. Think about that. What are your motives? What are their motives? And if you really, really listen to yourself and test your moral compass and that feeling of peace, if it's the right thing to do, the feeling of chaos and it's not the right thing to do, you'll feel this little twinge, that vagus nerve I've talked about so many times in other videos, the vagus nerve. It'll kind of stop you in your tracks and you feel a little queasy or you don't feel at ease. Saying, I don't feel right about doing this. I just feel like something bad's going to happen. It's like if you bend your own rules, that will really start getting you. That's when you start noticing it too. Are you bending your own rules or bending over backwards? Because if you're bending your own rules, then what happens is that deed might not go unpunished. If you're bending over backwards, you might end up with a broken back. If you give the last dime to somebody, you might end up dimeless, penniless. These sayings are who give you the shirt off their back. Lovely in concept, but make sure you have enough shirts to wear of your own in case you start giving them away. People say it's the wrong color. When people pleasers tend to be the worst offenders of the no good deed goes unpunished. So be very careful if you're people pleasing to seek approval from other people. If you are, you might end up doing a lot of good deeds that don't go unpunished. So this is not to punish you. Don't become cynical. I'm not telling you to not ever do good deeds by any means. I will continue to do them. I hope you continue to do them. The world would be a better place if more people did them. But please, if you are on the receiving end of good deeds, don't punish people. Don't in any way, shape, or form, even if they have to renege or take it back or say, I can't do it. Stop punishing them. They may have a really good reason. And they also don't have to explain 1,000 ways. If you make them feel like they have to explain or you push and push and shove, if you're that person that does that, stop. Because it's harmful to them and to you, especially if you're doing it to a people pleaser. So remember, watch your people pleasing. Ask yourself, what's your motive? Ask yourself, what's their motive? And then ask, would I ask somebody to do that for me? And if not, then just simply say, that's not something I could do. Now I'm going to take it a little one step further. If you really can't say no to somebody, then we use the gratitude sandwich, just like in business. They'll say, thank you for working here, but you've been a not loyal employee. So we have to let you go, but thank you for the time you served. So that's very similar. It's something they use in business. How that works for saying no to a good deed that somebody's asking you to do is, thank you for thinking I can bake 1,000 pies for your wedding. I just don't have time. I couldn't do it service, but thank you for thinking I could. I can give you the name of somebody who can do that for you. So understand that you don't have to do everything for everyone all the time. You do not. You absolutely do not. You will burn yourself out and they won't be happy. Some people are just never happy. So watch that too. The people that are never, ever happy, no matter what you do, no matter how you do it. If you bought them 10 Rolls Royces and bought them a mansion, the cars would all be the wrong color. The seats would be uncomfortable and the mansion would be made out of brick instead of stone. It'd be traditional instead of modern. There's just no good deed goes unpunished. So I'd love to hear your comments about how no good deed might have gone unpunished for you and anything you might want me to cover in a podcast, because I'll probably be doing a 2-part series on that, because I've been doing a lot of research for a very long time, about 6 months to a year now, of really digging deeply into what that means, because I don't like the cynicism of it, but I do understand the message of it to help people who do too much helping all the time. So don't burn out, just help out. Big difference. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.